Every day on this channel, we go through everything Elon Musk said on X over the last 24 hours. And this is everything Elon posted about each subject today. As always, I'll cover one subject in its entirety before moving on to the next one. So starting with Tesla, Elon had a huge announcement. He started it off by saying that most people don't know that Tesla has had an advanced AI chip and board engineering team for many years. And that team has already designed and deployed several million AI chips in our cars and data centers. These chips are what enable Tesla to be the leader in real-world AI. The current version in our cars is AI 4. We're close to tapping out AI 5 and are starting work on AI 6. Our goal is to bring a new AI chip design to volume production every 12 months. We expect to build chips at higher volumes ultimately than all other AI chips combined. Read that sentence again, as I'm not kidding. He expects to build chips at higher volumes ultimately than all other AI chips combined. And he says that these chips will profoundly change the world in positive ways, saving millions of lives due to safer driving and providing advanced medical care to all people via Optimus. And then he says, send an email with 3 bullet points describing evidence of your exceptional ability to aichips@tesla.com. And that they are particularly interested in applying cutting-edge AI to chip design. And he signs off saying, thanks, Elon. And he says that he's deeply involved in the chip design and meets with the engineering team every Tuesday and Saturday. And when AI 5 is tapped out, the Saturday meetings will no longer be needed as they're short term. And in response to that, Brandon said Optimus is coming. And Elon said, big time. Now, Dr. Joe Borelli didn't quite agree with Elon's statement, calling it another rabbit for the hat. And this was specifically regarding the quote when Elon said, we expect to build chips at higher volumes ultimately than all other AI chips combined. Elon responded to that with a rabbit. But the leading AI designer Ashok Iloswamy quoted that saying not to mention that these chips are heavily co-designed with the Tesla AI software teams to achieve incredible performance while also beating by a large margin on performance per watt and performance per dollar. And he said that, for instance, AI 4 can process and understand 1 million pixels of streaming video within about 1 millisecond. This is only achievable because the software and the hardware are designed together to achieve this performance point. And Elon quoted that saying, exactly. And Yunta, a senior staff designer at Tesla, also quoted that saying, join us to design the robotic brain that will help humanity scale across the universe. And so Elon wants to build new AI chips every year. And these chips have enabled robots, just like the Cybertruck, which Jack says that the Cybertruck is the best robot out there. And Elon gave him a heart saying, thanks, Jack. And this post was also quoted by Wes, a leading Tesla Cybertruck engineer, showing his robot, saying there are many like it, but this one is his, and this is his Cybertruck right here. And finally, for Tesla, this is electrifying Bangkok day to night in Thailand. And Elon reposted this as well as these pictures from Tesla Thailand. So rapid improvements in Tesla's processing power is coming, but Grok recently got a rapid improvement in Grok 4.1. And now Grok 4.1 Fast is the #1 agentic coding model on the internet, beating out Kimi K2 Thinking, Gemini 3 Pro, and GPT-5. And Elon quoted that saying Grok. And Grok 4.1 Fast is also now ranked the #1 on Open Router, surpassing Google's Gemini. And the processing power of Grok allowed xAI to re-index Wikipedia for truth, creating Grokipedia. And next time someone asks you a question, you can just send them a Grokipedia link because it's the most accurate, unbiased, knowledge-based online fact-checked, updated, and built to find the truth. And that was posted by Tesla owners Silicon Valley and reposted by Elon. And Nima Owiji had an idea, saying, what if Grokipedia was integrated into X to quickly look up items? And this is his concept. You can see here he clicked Grok, and it gives you the option to look up on Grokipedia. And Elon said that that was a good idea. Speaking of good ideas, let's talk about solar in space. Apparently, OpenAI is planning to use more energy than the UK or Germany in 5 years, and more than India in 8 years, and it's just one company. And Elon says that he can see a path to doing 300 gigawatts per year within 8 years, which Adam Lawis responded to that saying that he can see that our GDP growth will be limited by our ability to produce electricity, saying that we need to make a lot more electricity. And that brings me to solar in space, because even if we disassembled the rocky planets, converted them into fusion reactors, and fueled them with the gas giants, we still couldn't hold a candle to the sun. You can see that right here and just how much the sun dominates all of that. And the sun is 99.8% of all the mass in our solar system. And even if you somehow burned Jupiter and everything that is not the sun in a fusion reactor, the sun would still round up to 100% of all energy. The sun is what matters long term. And this was posted by Elon, and he said it's just basic physics. So going back to how we deal with data centers, that 300 gigawatt a year number that Elon quoted would take just 12 years to exceed all electricity generation on Earth. And so Elon says that we need to manufacture on the moon, which will enable 100 terawatts a year. And this was quoted by Jimma, who said, "I am so here for this." And Elon said, "It would be so cool to see this in action," as well as giving a heart and a spaceship emoji. So how do we end up building that on the moon? Well, that's where Starship comes into play. Elon says it's the first planet colonizer class rocket. And you can see Starship here compared to every other rocket, just dominating them all. And Tesla owners Silicon Valley repeats this quote from Elon, showing these videos of Starship taking off, and it's quite impressive. You can see that right there. The whole room's shaking. And this was reposted by Elon, as well as this post from SpaceX, because Falcon 9 just launched 28 Starlink satellites from California. And those Starlink satellites enabled Steve Pinciotti to have his first tailgate with the Cybertruck. And he said it's crushing it. Starlink mounted TV electric griddle and Starlink easily powered. And you can see that right here, him just watching the game right there. And this was quoted by Starlink, saying that Starlink Mini is portable and connects to high-speed internet in just minutes, ideal for staying connected at tailgates. All right, and moving on to politics. Apparently, the UK is set to harm children as young as 10 with puberty blockers, having greenlit purity blockers for people as young as 10. And this was quoted by Billboard Chris, who called it government-sanctioned Nazi-level experimentation on kids. And Elon agreed with that. And Billboard Chris compared transgenderism to post-birth abortion, calling it a virtual suicide of one's true self. And Elon also agreed with that one. And this post highlights the fact that a 17-year-old child is deemed too immature to consent to a tattoo, but a 10-year-old child can consent to puberty blockers. And this is in response to a BBC News article talking about puberty blockers beginning trial after a UK ban lifted. And that was reposted by Elon. And now Elon called this severe child abuse, saying that those who do this are modern-day Mengels. And apparently this plan from the UK involves 3,000 kids. And this post highlighted a link to help them stop this trial, and it was reposted by Elon. And he said this is evil and cannot be allowed to proceed. And this article talks about how at Cambridge, 3 brave students are taking on the trans bullies. Apparently, despite adversity, 3 students and their supporters believe their actions provide hope for reasserting women's rights and free speech in academia. And Elon said that that was good. And he also agreed with this statement from James Esses, who says, "Once we eradicate the puberty blockers and the cross-sex hormones, the professionals who perform these need to face justice, and that justice is prison." Now, speaking of prisons, we're moving into crime and violence, so viewer discretion is advised. Now, today, Elon said it is incredibly cruel of so many judges to push murderous thugs on the innocent public, and double shame on anyone who funds them to do so. Now, what is he talking about? Well, apparently, a man set fire to Bethany McGee, a 26-year-old who now has 60% burns, and this man had 70 prior arrests. Now, Ali quoted that, saying that if it takes tripling the prison population to prevent this, it's fine. They don't care anymore. And Elon agreed with that. And you guys may remember Irina Zarutska. Well, her killer targeted the only white person on the train, saying, "I got that white girl." But the authorities determined the killing was not racially motivated. And Elon said, "What?" He literally confessed on camera. Now, it was first Irina Zarutska, but now it's Bethany McGee. Eric S. Raymond asks, when was the last time a white person screamed, "Burn, burn," at a black woman, and then set fire on her? And he says there's a dramatic asymmetry in the pattern of interracial violence. It's in a symmetry we're not supposed to notice or comment on. And Elon said that that's troubling. And Jeffrey Mead points out how in the case of Bethany McGee, the city is failing that woman. and the leaders of this city are absolutely failing her, as the man who burned her was arrested over 70 times but was still out on the streets, and Elon reposted that. And apparently prosecutors had told Judge Teresa Molina Gonzalez that this man was violent and he would strike again, but she waved it off and said, "I can't keep everybody in jail because the state's attorney wants me to." And it was just days later that he boarded a train and screamed "burn alive" and poured gasoline on a random woman and set her on fire. And this wasn't an accident, it was preventable, and an innocent woman is fighting for her life because a judge didn't care. And Elon reposted that. So America has an under-incarceration problem, and Elon agreed, saying that innocent people are getting killed every day because repeat violent offenders are not being locked up, and that murderers where there is an unequivocal evidence of guilt should be hanged, as has been the case throughout history. And this is the story of 3 black teens arrested for fatally beating Roger Borkham in Jacksonville. And there was also an African immigrant, most likely a Somalian, arrested for killing 2 whites at a Halloween party in Utah. And Elon gave that 2 exclamation points. So how many more women have to be brutally stabbed or set on fire before we finally start holding the corrupt judges who keep freeing these criminals accountable? And Elon reposted that. And Bukele provided a quote in regard to this, saying, "He who spares the wolf sacrifices the sheep." And Elon said, "Exactly." And Tim Pool pointed out how there's no riots for Bethany McGee, there was no riots for Irina, and there was no riots for Lincoln. And Elon asks why. And we've talked about this before, but this is the story of Daniel Penny. He put a homeless felon in a fatal chokehold to stop him from attacking passengers, and his bail was $200,000. But Mohammed Isdin, who raped a woman at knife point after breaking into her home, was released without bail. And Elon said that that is not fair. But apparently it's not just judges who fall victim to this, not prosecuting criminals. See 3 posts about how Ray's FBI was investigating Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, but not the Somalians in Minnesota funding al-Shabaab. And Elon says that that's not good. And apparently Somalians in Minnesota have been stealing from Americans with fraudulent schemes. The American taxpayers have been sending aid to Somalia. $2 billion in 2020, $2.4 billion in 2021, $1.9 billion in 2022, 1.8 in 2023, and 1.6 in 2024. And Elon says that this needs to stop. But apparently 2020 needs to stop as well, because now it's time to pass proof of citizenship, voter ID, and same-day voting, as well as paper ballots. And this was reposted by Elon. And because it was reposted by Elon, MAGA Voice says this needs to be our #1 priority, and it's time to get loud, MAGA. And the America PAC posted a reminder that voter ID is overwhelmingly popular and is not a partisan issue, with around 84% of people agreeing with it. And Elon said the will of the people should be made law. And Trump had just said we must focus all of our energy and might on election fraud. And Eric Daughtry says that Trump's right. The Democrats obtain power through cheating and fraud. We need to end the fraud and we win. Nuke the filibuster and make fraud impossible. And Elon said 100. Now this is unrelated, but apparently the technique that Derek Chauvin used was taught in practice in the police department. And Derek Chauvin was the cop who had his knee on George Floyd's neck. And apparently more than 50 officers said so. And Elon reposted that, as well as this from Andrew Branca, who said the legitimacy of the knee on back technique used by Chauvin upon Floyd was known at the time of the trial, and the police academy training manual with the photos of the knee on back technique was in the evidence. But the entire trial that he watched every minute of was an exercise in racist, anti-white hysteria, with a single defense attorney fighting night and day against arguments and motions being made and filed continuously by more than a dozen prosecuting attorneys, many of them who volunteered and flew in from out of state for the sole purpose of participating in this lynching of Derek Chauvin. Now moving on to different countries and their policies around the world. Apparently Italy's demographic crisis is deepening, with only 369,944 babies being born in 2024, which is the lowest since unification in 1861. And that's the 16th straight year of decline. And you can see that right here. And apparently almost every German city is now on the verge of bankruptcy. And this relates to birth rates, because Elon says a low domestic birth rate and importing vast numbers of migrants who are a net drain on the economy means poverty for retirees in Germany. And so this is happening to Germany, but apparently the United States imports a Montana-sized population of almost entirely non-white foreigners every single year, and this has been happening for decades and hasn't changed under Donald Trump. And Elon says America must not fall. And the Department of State for the United States says that mass migration poses an existential threat to Western civilization and undermines the stability of key American allies. And so today the State Department has instructed U.S. embassies to report on the human rights implications and public safety impacts of mass migration. And Elon says this is simply a fact. And you know what else is a fact? Well, Lee Kuan Yew, the founding father of Singapore, said this fact on immigration to America. Immigration has been a great strength for America, but mind you, immigration of the highly intelligent and highly hardworking. If it's immigration of fruit pickers, you won't get very far. And Elon said that Lee Kuan Yew was a genius next level. And apparently in Sweden, immigrants openly say that they will visit their home countries, the very countries they claim to have fled from and are too dangerous to return to, and no one raises an eyebrow. And Elon said that that's insane. And apparently Sweden has the world's highest taxes as well, and almost all media is state-funded and hard left. Apparently today, just a few hours ago, Henrik Johnson said enough is enough, launching a 100% completely independent news platform with no state money, only to the people, saying that this is Sweden's Twitter moment, and he was inspired by Elon, and that was reposted by Elon. And apparently Olof Palme added multiculturalism into the Constitution of Sweden in 1975, and now that led to mass migration 50 years later, record gun violence, parallel societies, and major demographic shifts. And Elon said that he destroyed Sweden. And right now, Ukraine is getting destroyed by Russia. But the draft 28-point peace plan in Ukraine is a reasonable basis for negotiations, says Niall Ferguson. And he says that wars are either ended by victory or by compromise, and that the plan affirms Ukraine's sovereignty, providing Ukraine with U.S.-backed security guarantees. And he says that if you want to take back territory and try Putin, you have to win the war, and realistically, Ukraine has never been in a position to defeat Russia. Apparently, he had never said that before, and he was against them making peace until now, and Elon said indeed he was, but on the other hand, my post about Ukraine 2 years ago was right. They should have sought peace then. All that's happened since then is massive death and destruction for no gains, which is such an obvious prediction. And finally, for politics, in Elon's Joe Rogan interview, he expose Democratic NGOs. Elon further exposed them today, saying rough estimates place total direct spending in the 5.5 to 7 billion range over the past about 9 years on NGOs trying to solve homelessness, where approximately 660,000 to 840,000 per current homeless person in San Francisco. And increased spending has not improved the homeless situation because it creates a strong financial incentive for NGOs to maintain, if not increase, homelessness. Whatever you incentivize will happen, says Elon. Alright, and moving on from politics, let's listen to a limerick about Ryan Lizza and his marriage, which is there once was a scribe named Olivia whose love life sparked quite the hysteria with K's Digital, Trice, and Stanford on a list. Now Lizza cries foul, pure dystopia. Apparently, Lizza is a journalist who's positioned himself as a victim of betrayal in a high-profile digital affair between RFK Jr. and Newsy while she was engaged to him. Apparently, he's retaliated by publicly exposing intimate details of RFK Jr.'s communications with Newsy via his Telos News Substack, framing it as a defense of journalistic ethics and a personal catharsis. And this is easily one of the most incredible videos that Nature is Amazing has seen on the internet. And apparently Elon thought so too because it was reposted by him. They're dolphins swimming in the ocean. And I actually thought this was Grok Imagine at first. You can see here this whale is just massive. It's crazy. It looks almost fake. And there's another look at that whale. Alrighty, and to finish off, let's read this from X Freeze, which is about being Elon. So picture you're Elon. You just nuked the timeline with a Kardashev scale reality check saying, I have a plan. Meanwhile, China's out here printing solar panels like it's counterfeit fentanyl, absolutely curb stomping the US in the Sunshine Olympics. We're bringing pocket knives to a laser fight, bro. We're literally about to run out of atoms for NV-Link cables. And you think the Nevada grid is going to save us? You realize AI is now the most expensive cocaine habit in human history. Current US grid is about 500 gigawatts average, already sweating like a vegan at a Texas barbecue. One Frontier model run in 2028 is going to slurp up more juice than the entire country of France role-playing as a lights festival. Earth data centers already out here committing war crimes on rivers for cooling water. Do the math, smooth brains. We're about to need the entire grid just to train train Grok 7. Chips. TSMC and Samsung sending me the same email every quarter. Dear Elon, lol, no with a heart. Fine. Tesla Terafab incoming. 10 million wafers a year built next to Giga Texas, powered by whatever the heck I want because I own the rockets. Power situation. Earth crying over natural gas permits. Me quietly lofting 500 to 800 megawatts of thin film solar per Starship flight. Like it's an Uber Eats for the vacuum. That's one fully functional orbital gigawatt every week if I feel spicy. Orbital data centers equal infinite free sunlight plus 3K cosmic microwave background heatsink. Translation, your Earth rigs are space heaters with a gambling addiction. My orbital rigs are perfectly black body radiators running at 100% duty cycle while sipping Starlight like it's a martinis at 3 a.m. Latency, Starlink lasers already do 100 gigabits per second cross continent. In 2 years, we'll be doing petabit. Your query goes up. Answers come down faster than your GPU finishes complaining about spot pricing. Phase 1, XAI orbital constellation makes Memphis supercluster look like a Raspberry Pi someone dropped in a puddle. Phase 2, every AI company on Earth begs for rack space on my satellites like it's the last helicopter out of Saigon. Phase 3, Kardashev Type 2 by 2045, or I'll personally apologize to the sun for underutilizing it. Ground cell seething and replies, but atmospheric losses, but launch costs, but orbital decay. Dang, don't you know I own the launch company? I'm the atmospheric loss. Stay poor down there fighting over lake water. I'm moving humanity's IQ to orbit. So apparently that's the mind of Elon, and that made Elon laugh. And apparently this is Tommy's first time seeing that the timeline collectively realizes that Elon is not competing with tech companies, he's competing with planetary physics. And while everyone is arguing about grids, cooling, and chips, meanwhile Elon is already speedrunning the Kardashev tutorial. And he says, stay grounded if you want, I am the one building the next layer of reality. And Elon says that pretty much sums up his mentality. And apparently, when Elon was 36, he sat down for a quiet PBS interview and he said almost casually, the most important thing we can do for the future of consciousness is to become a multiplanetary species. Everything else pales in comparison. And then with zero hype, he predicted fully reusable rockets that land like airplanes, electric cars that outperform gasoline in every way and go mass market, solar plus batteries becoming the cheapest energy on Earth, and humans on Mars and a self-sustaining city there. And now he's done that with Falcon 9 landing 400 plus times, Starship and Tesla and solar batteries. And almost 20 years later, every single crazy prediction from that interview is either already reality or on schedule. And this is what relentless execution looks like. He didn't just dream about the future, he scheduled it and showed up. And that was everything Elon said today. He talked about a yearly release cycle for new AI chips, and they're going to be creating a massive amount of these chips. He said that he expects to build these upcoming AI chips at a scale more than all the other AI chips combined. And he called on you guys, if you have exceptional skills, to join the movement in building these chips. We also heard him talk about solar energy in space and how that's going to transform energy as we know it. Grok is still dominating the benchmarks even with the release of Gemini 3. And we got to see Elon Musk when he was 36 years old predict things like reusable rockets and Optimus robots and the likeness. We also got to see him talk about crime and how judges shouldn't let people off, as well as reiterate his stances on transgenderism in minors. As always, if you want early access to these videos or simply want to support the channel, consider joining it as a member. And I am out.